I had a birthday recently. This was not a party-worthy birthday. This was nothing monumental. There was no, big number to be celebrated. This was just a regular birthday. The problem is the last 365 days, from the last birthday till this birthday, has been more monumental for me than any other. And I'll tell you why. See, over the last 365 days, I've seen some serious changes in myself, all of which are age-related. Look at the gray hair. Look how prominent that has become. There's a lot of gray hair happening here. My once powerful, even luxurious hairline is now a shadow of its former self. I've reached the stage where I can't tell if my eyesight is getting worse or my arms are getting shorter because I can't read what's on the paper. But none of this bothers me. None of this affects me in any way except for one thing. My metabolism has slowed significantly. Let me explain it to you. Human beings are all different. We gain weight in different ways. We put on fat in different places. Myself, I've developed a secondary ass. This is not just a regular ass. You know what a normal human ass looks like. You get it. There's the ass. I've developed a back ass, which is just 2 steps above the regular ass. So I've got my classic man ass, which is pretty flat because it's man ass. But then I've got this back ass, this booty that's worthy of its own Instagram account. No, like for real though, you should see this thing. It's thick as hell. I'd give it likes, but it's in the middle of my back. Now look, I know that this didn't happen just this year. This has been a few years in the making. I get it. What I've noticed about my back ass this year is that it's getting harder and harder to do little things to make it go away. As I've gotten older and my metabolism has slowed, being lazy hasn't helped. But it wasn't always like this. I used to be quite active. I used to get out there all the time. I was really into mountain biking for a while. Matter of fact, that leads me to a story that I'd like to tell you. If you'll bear with me for just a minute, I think if I'm going to tell this story, I'm first going to need to do this whole thing. So flashback to 2010. There's all kinds of crap on the radio like Kesha and Katy Perry, but we've just been introduced to something called The Walking Dead, and Ray Beers, Jer, me, is heavy into mountain biking. So I'm supposed to go on a mountain biking road trip with my riding partner and cousin, who unfortunately had to cancel that day because he couldn't get out of work. I was convinced that I could go by myself, it'd be no problem. I was about 4 hours away from home. I hear the trails up in this area are amazing, wanted to try it out, took the drive, got there, started out, had a great morning, rode the trails almost half the day before any kind of an occurrence, until it happened. I dropped into this trail, and the trailhead was pretty light, pretty gentle stuff. There was a couple of bumps, couple of whoops, couple of jumps. Nothing crazy until you drop off on like a cliff. It's kind of like, like this one. I mean, like not this one, but like this one. So I land on this steep transition and I'm hauling ass. Just cruising. You come down the steep hill, there's a sharp turn with a big bermed up wall. I rail into that berm, there's a jump. Just as I'm about to hit the lip of this jump, a bee flies into my helmet and stings my face. Now, I don't know if you've ever ridden a mountain bike. I don't know if you've ever done a dirt jump of any kind, but the last thing you want to do is unexpectedly take your hands off the handlebars. What did I do? I took my hands off the handlebars, and in 1 nanosecond, I'm floating through the air upside down, and I land on the back of my head, my body folds in half, and my 45-pound downhill bike comes crashing down on top of me. Now I'm alone, I'm in the woods, on a downhill trail, and I'm injured. And I don't know how seriously injured until I stand up. When I stood up, everything started to spin. My shoulder looked like a staircase. Completely dislocated my shoulder. Had no choice but to get to the bottom of this hill. So I hopped back on my bike and I rode the rest of the way. Dizzy, bleeding, dislocated shoulder. Got down to the area where I had parked my car, looked around, not a soul in sight. Decided to hang my bike back up on the rack, hop in the car, and drive the 4 hours home. Now on the drive home, I started to kind of realize just how injured I was. I was dizzy, my body was stiffening up, I was cramping, but I had to get home because I had no idea where anything around me was. I spent about 10 hours in the hospital when I got back. The injuries were terrible. I had a slight fracture in my collarbone, I had 3 broken ribs, I had internal bleeding, and I had a heavy grade concussion. Fast forward 16 weeks, and I'm feeling a lot better. 16 weeks. 16 weeks! I gotta go to work. So I'm in the shower cleaning myself off. Lather up the hair. I had hair back then. Wash the body, wash the chest, under the arms, you know, the shower thing. You know, you get to the stink zones, right? And as I'm headed down south, I noticed something. Quick anatomy lesson. The human penis does not have an elbow. But on this day, my penis had its very own elbow. So here I am, in shock, in the shower, looking down at my dick that is firmly facing west and pitch black. On one side of it, there's like a bulge, like it's rounded, and the shock, I don't think you understand the shock. I don't think you understand the shock that happens when you look down at your own package and you see that it looks like a completely different body part. Like it was not a little bit misshapen. It was literally pointing due west. My dick had an elbow and it was pitch black. Do you understand the gravity of this situation? So I waited for my wife to get home because I was petrified. Stood in the living room, dripping wet, never even really fully dried off. I don't know. But I waited for her to walk in the door. And when she walked in the door, I dropped my towel. And the only thing she could do was say, "Holy shit, let's go back to the hospital." So back to the hospital we go. We get to the triage. The triage nurse, sweet lady, as I'm trying to delicately explain this to her, and it's impossible. I repeat, impossible to delicately explain to someone what's happening downstairs. So I take it out. Shock and fear. This was like, I've never seen a reaction like this from a medical professional. You expect a level of professionalism from these people, and it was gone. She threw that shit out the window. Her eyes bulged out of her head, and she said, oh my. Okay, now, if any of you live in my area, you'll understand that when we go to the emergency room, it's an endeavor. You're looking at hours of wait time, unless you have serious trauma. Within 15 minutes, I was checked in the emergency room, and the nurse came to see me. 15 minutes. Unheard of. The nurse walks in. She's got her little chart in her hand and she's asking me some questions, and I'm again trying very hard to delicately explain to her what's going on downstairs. Again, impossible. So I pull it out again and her eyes get wide and she starts taking notes and she's looking and she's looking and she's writing and she's looking and she's writing. This goes on for about 5 minutes and she says to me, "Now just stay calm for a few minutes. Somebody will be right back." Fast forward 10 minutes, a second nurse comes in and she asks me to explain to her what's going on. So I start explaining again. Eventually, I just take it out again. She starts writing notes down. 5 minutes later, she says, "Somebody will be back with you soon." This happens a third time and then a fourth. By the fifth nurse that walked through that curtain, I was ready to just stand there with my dick out. I wasn't going to explain anymore. I was finished explaining what was happening. She walked through the curtain. I literally just unzipped my pants and pulled my dick out. She took her notes and she left. 10 minutes after that, the doctor finally came. When the doctor arrived, he sits down and he says, "So explain to me what the problem is." I had a parade of 5 nurses taking notes, and this guy didn't know what the problem was. Simple. So I showed him. This scary moment just turned into something simple. All it was, after the trauma of the crash, the internal bleeding, the broken bones, I had some serious internal swelling. And when that swelling went down, the blood that had pooled inside my body needed a place to drain. So it found the southernmost point. It found my Key West, and it decided to holiday there. No problem, no damage done. None. After that, I bought one more mountain bike, because I wanted to get back on the horse and have at it. I was always a little more reluctant after that to do the things that I used to do on a mountain bike. So it stopped being fun. So I eventually sold that bike because I didn't ride it for a couple of seasons. And I hadn't ridden one since. Every bike I ride now has got a motor. So as you can see, I'm not getting exercise. So now I have to figure out how, at my clearly advancing age, how I'm gonna beat my back ass. So I'm gonna use you. I'm gonna use you to motivate me to get off my fat ass and go to the gym. We're gonna start today.